So I reviewed both the Avata 360 and the Osmo 360 camera experiences, but what's behind this 360 magic? Where does the actual 8K go? And how do you create amazing mind-bending shots that doesn't just look like a 360 gimmick? Well, since you all really love the easy FPV video, making it quite popular, here is another tutorial to better understand your Avata 360 and all the 360 features that come with it. Let's break down what happens when you fly the drone and start recording, and what makes it different from any other drone. The Avata 360 operates with dual 360 cameras that both capture high-resolution fisheye shots from below and above the drone at the same time. The camera module is always in a fixed position, so you don't get weird drone artifacts in the footage when maneuvering. So by seamlessly stitching both camera outputs real time, the drone gets magically erased from the shot. But the real magic is in the fact that at all times, you get that full surrounding view recorded, regardless of what your remote or goggles show at the time of flying. Usually the frame will be pointed forwards to show on which direction are you heading to, but here this serves purely as a reference point, as that can all be changed later in post. And the cool thing about the Avata series drones is that they can be operated both by FPV Gear as well as the regular remote controller, which both offer totally different experience, and those 360 cameras provide some added features for adjusting the shot on the fly. So with the RC2 Remote Controller, it feels like a regular drone at first, but when tilting with the left scroll wheel, you will notice that the gimbal, which is actually virtual rather than physical, doesn't stop at a certain point. Instead, it goes all the way around. While with the right scroll wheel, you can manipulate the field of view, going from a slightly cropped regular one all the way up to 272 degrees, providing an all-round view from the drone with the entire scenery. By combining both, you can get cool perspectives, like that cool asteroid look, and so on. But when in normal field of view, you can use the touchscreen on the RC2 to look around real time and adjust the framing freely. Then for your usual tracking modes like active track and spotlight, they will work better, because the drone can virtually lock on and track the subject first, totally changing the way the flying is handled, as the front no longer has to be pointed towards the subject. Now when you fly using the FPV goggles and the motion controller, you have even more 360 features. One of them is the updated head tracking, which was previously something where the drone would physically sync the movements with the position of your head, but that's no longer the case, as with full 360 coverage you can freely look around by moving your head, while the drone is hovering in the air. Now of course you can also fly in this mode at your own caution, because looking one way and flying the other can feel a little bit disconnected. But when doing actual FPV flying, the 360 camera system comes in handy, as you get a little frame showing you top view when taking off, bottom view when landing, and side views when performing sliding maneuvers to the sides. And of course for the FPV mode, you also get the same field of view scroll interaction as on the RC2, as well as all the same spotlight and active track controls. And easy acro tricks are all virtual now, playing with those infinite 360 pan angles without performing much of any real physical stunts. But as I said, this is all just the in-flight experience you see when playing around with the viewfinder. So let's jump to the DJI Studio to see what this captured footage looks like. DJI Studio is the software you will need to download to view and edit all the captured 360 footage on your computer, which is compatible both with Windows and macOS. All that 360 footage is saved in a proprietary OSV file format, so when installed, expect the files to be handled automatically by DJI Studio. Now when viewing a 360 file, you will originally see the exact same framing that was captured by the drone, which is the recorded viewfinder data that I was previously talking about. And you can actually use the mouse to freely look around during a playback, but it will immediately bounce back and revert to the captured coordinates, which is actually something that was added with the Avata 360, as when opening footage from the Osmo 360, you don't have a set position. Instead, it just opens at default coordinates, which you can change around during the playback. I kinda wish the DJI added a free view button to the 360 player as well, as otherwise you can only do it once you're in the timeline. Which brings us to editing, which is really the part where you will be spending the most of the time in, playing around with your 360 footage, as the final result will only be as good as you edit it to be. So drop the footage on the timeline and many options will appear. So just as we discussed, the framing actually mirrors what you saw when flying the drone by default, and you can change this on the upper right corner to either free view or a front-facing direction lock. Do keep in mind that when you switch away from the drone view, everything will be reset to a static frame throughout the whole video, losing any framing effects that you apply during the flight. Notice that in free view mode, you have rock-steady stabilization enabled automatically, which keeps things leveled and the footage free of any shakes. Right away, you can change the perspective using the available lens effects, going all the way from de-warped standard drone footage to an ultra-wide fisheye, and even the little planet asteroid effect. You can adjust the zoom slider that will automatically change things like field of view in the lower section, and I would highly suggest to play around with each of these controls individually to get a better understanding at what each of them does to your image. And some of these really work the same way as on the RC2, where one scroll changes how wide you want the shot to be and the other changes the tilt angle. And by playing with these together, you get those nice looking effects. But using the lens presets above as a base can be useful, as you don't have to adjust the correction angle manually. You just select the preset, then adjust the pan, tilt, and the roll manually to get the frame where you want it to be, and then save this as a keyframe. So the way this whole 360 warping and editing works in post is that you basically create a keyframe for each of the shots you want to position. Then going one keyframe to the other will get automatically animated as the coordinates of the frames change. And let me show you an example of how this works by opening some of my previous edits, so you can get a better look behind the scenes and how it actually works. So this is how each of the keyframes look like. You can see that each of them have different parameters, which makes them appear different. Now when you roll the playback, it all blends into one smooth roll of various angle switching scenarios. But here you might not want to overdo it with the keyframes, as too many can cause slight jerking or stuttering in certain spots. You just set the start and finish points for the animation to create the main movement. Then insert additional keyframes in between to fine-tune it for certain objects. So when starting from scratch, you can do a simple backflip effect with just 2 keyframes. Set the position of the starting frame, then scroll further in the timeline to create another keyframe, and spin out the tilt angle all the way around. Now the speed of the flip will depend on how far apart each of the keyframes are placed. The further away they are, the slower that flip will be. And when you notice that something doesn't look right, then you can adjust the start and end for proper timing, or add that extra frame in between for manual correction. Now there are actually different keyframe animations available as well, which completely changes the way animation is handled. But honestly, I never really used them myself, as I found the default one to be the most suitable, where I can easily fine-tune things manually. But if you do feel like this whole keyframing thing is a bit too complicated, then you can just go to the camera movements section up top and drop any of them directly onto your video to experiment. Now, this is an easy way to do the effects, and you can adjust the start and end keyframes of the movement, with some even having the middle section as well. But this provides significantly less control over the shot, so I do advise to learn the manual way first, even if it takes more time initially, as you will be able to master your shots the way you like. And one of the possibly coolest features of DJI Studio is the intelligent tracking, which is essentially active track but in post, which allowed me to create a cool shot like this. And it's pretty easy, as you simply select a starting frame, press the intelligent tracking button, and choose an automatically recognized subject in the shot to follow. The software will then lock onto it for tracking until you tell it to stop. You can adjust the tracking range afterwards as well, but the downside with this feature is that you won't be able to modify or insert any keyframes within that tracking range. And for editing, DJI Studio provides lots of different options, like adding music, text, effects, and transitions, which are not that crucial for our core 360 editing today. But one thing you might want to check out is the filters section, as there you can also color grade the 360 footage shot in D-Log-M, either by choosing one of the available filters or by uploading your own standard LUT. So obviously you will want to color grade within DJI Studio itself to ensure proper color data is used, before exporting to a regular file format for use with your primary editing software. Additionally, manual color adjustments can be made in the upper right adjust section, with simple color recovery available for the D-Log as well. Now you do also have some interesting stitching options available here under the image section, though I have to say that I don't usually apply these, as the footage looks good enough already. But the AI-based stitching could be worth a try if you are seeing some glitches that could use improvement. It won't, however, be able to do much with the optical stitching errors if you were simply too close to the target. And a quick tip regarding the 360 footage is that you might want to shoot with 60 FPS at all times, since the Avata 360 actually brings a 10 FPS improvement over the Osmo 360's 50 FPS, which can be used for a mild slow-mo effect by adjusting the speed to 0.5x, while keeping the export settings at 30 FPS. So when exporting, you can usually keep all the parameters at their defaults. 4K 30 FPS footage with high bitrate and automatic noise reduction set to speed priority. And that noise reduction does a pretty good job, as I often end up getting much better footage than during the preview or editing. So you might want to try setting quality as priority if you want that perfect final shot with the grain eliminated. So while we are mostly done with the core principles of the whole 360 editing process, we didn't really touch on editing directly through the DJI Fly App, which might be handy when you just want to quickly pull footage from your drone and post it online with no computer by your side, which makes total sense. But the core editing logic remains largely the same. If you master DJI Studio, the mobile editing will be just as easy or easier, though you may find some additional motion features exclusive to the mobile platform. So for smoother mobile workflows, I advise to offload the footage to the phone before editing, and try to stick with shorter clips to make things easier and faster to process. As if you do have a computer nearby, I'd always suggest sticking to DJI Studio and just switching the aspect ratio around for social media, as it really gives you more power for editing and exporting in full quality. But now that one thing that surely gets asked a lot is, why does the export resolution get limited to 4K when we always see that 8K 360 drone slogan being used everywhere? Well, it's actually because that 8K resolution applies only to the 360 footage, which contains the whole spherical view. See, when you switch over to panoramic video on the expert window, you will see that the full 8K resolution now becomes available for use. So you can export this entire 360 view and use it for different scenarios, like uploading it to YouTube, where it can be used for interactive playback. Or if you have a VR headset, you can actually relive the moment from your high altitude flights with a free look around possibility, which really turns that one simple drone flight into an immersive experience. So I hope that this helps you understand the basics behind the Avata 360 and how to get the best possible footage out from it. And the more you play around with it, the more interesting ideas you'll get for the next flying session. If you want to know more about the drone itself, then check out my full review of the Avata 360. Or if you're just getting into 360 imaging, then have a look at my Osmo 360 video as well. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay armored with tech, and see you in the next video.